Yeah, I went there, and I'm not sorry, and I'm not wrong. Hello, friends. Welcome. Did you miss me? Today, we're gonna do a reaction to another Bailey Sarian video. Bow, 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 bow. Listen, y'all love these, and I really enjoy making them, so I figure why not do another? And it's the 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗧 video, which has been requested a lot. If you haven't seen the last two I did, I'll link them, check them out. But today we're gonna talk about 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗧, and I am not here to criticize Bailey, as some people come. I know you come in guns a-blazing, ready to tackle me on behalf of Bailey. We love Bailey on this channel. This is a no-hate zone for Bailey Sarian. I'm just here to fill in some legal gaps, help explain the legal side of things a little bit more, so that we can all have a more robust understanding of these really famous true crime tales. I love it just as much as you guys do. I'm here, we're all friends. This is a peaceful video offering to the people. You'll notice we have a slightly different vibe right now with the background. I have a fun announcement of new things to come at the end of the video, so stick around. We are dealing with live pyrotechnics, my friends. I've been too scared to do it, but I thought, fuck it, let's light some shit up. Okay, we got actual candle action, all right? And I think it sets a really nice vibe. If you're new here, my name is Leeja. I'm a real life lawyer on a mission to demystify the law and how it affects your everyday life. But I'm not your lawyer. Nothing that I say should ever be construed as legal advice, and you should always seek the advice of a licensed attorney before making any legal decisions, okay? You may hear that snoring in the background. I have an English bulldog puppy, yes, and she snores like an old man, okay? Her name's Moira. Don't get scared. It's just my dog. All right, quick thank you to Surfshark for partnering with me on today's video. And you might be wondering, Leeja, what does a VPN have anything to do with this story of 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗧? Well, we'll get into it. Let's dive into the video, shall we?
Hi friends, how's it going today?
Hi Bailey.
𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗧, well, she was born March 16th, 1986.
A Pisces. Fascinating, that doesn't fit. We love a Pisces. Sensitive, head in the clouds. But I guess maybe if you combine it with like severe narcissism, it becomes like, I don't want to take care of my baby, for example. I'd rather have my head in the clouds. Normally I love a Pisces though, no hate, okay?
So 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗧 became that friend or that person who always had to have a boyfriend or just be in a relationship. She didn't enjoy being single or just on her own, or maybe she just didn't know how to be without a partner.
This isn't legal advice, obviously, but my dudes, have you ever tried being single before? It's freaking glorious, and that's coming from someone who is very happily in a monogamous relationship right now. I spent a lot of years in my 20s as a single lady, and I gotta say, 10 out of 10 would recommend. I feel like everyone should spend a significant chunk of time being single because it teaches you that you don't need anyone and you're gonna be fine. Not that you don't need anyone, you don't need a relationship. You can rely on your platonic relationships, family, support system, etc. And you don't need a person, a significant other, to fulfill you. It's a great exercise. You gotta learn who you are. You have to develop hobbies. If you are in a lackluster relationship, I am telling you being single is way better. Here's your sign to dump them. Link to my merch in the description below.
When her parents would think back to 𝗬𝗓𝗓𝗧's high school age, they really had no idea who 𝗬𝗓𝗓 hung out with, her friends, who she was dating. I mean, nothing. They tried to be involved, but 𝗬𝗓𝗓 made it impossible for them to be involved because she wouldn't tell them anything. 𝗬𝗓𝗓 would go out with her friends, she would party all night, and she just went through what one would call a wild stage, you know?
Okay, I gotta say, I'm a little skeezed out by her parents, if I'm being honest. Like, I know there's only so much you can do when your child is a little asshole, all right? You can't control them necessarily. But how did they not just like pry a little bit more? You know, like if I were a parent, none of this would fly, which is why I don't want to be a parent, because it sounds stressful and boring. And also, like, given her track record, why the fuck did they make her keep the child? You know what I mean? Something's off. Okay?
They pop open the trunk and they see a trash bag. So Cindy said that they didn't open the trash bag, they just threw it away. Then she said that she used an entire bottle of Febreze on the inside of the car. They left all of the car doors open to help air it out.
Really? You didn't take even a peek inside the body bag? Your granddaughter's been missing for over a month and the car's impounded under mysterious circumstances and it smells like a decomposing body, and you didn't like want to take a look? As Bailey would say, suspicious.
They uncover these lies. Casey was arrested on July 16th. She was charged with neglect of a child, obstruction of justice, and making false statements.
Okay, so just as a side note, she's not charged with murder or abduction at this point yet because they haven't found the body. So if you don't have a body, there's not much of a crime to charge her with. However, she was charged with child neglect and obstruction of justice because she did, and they had evidence of this, lie to the cops because, yeah, she just brought them on this little tour to nowhere and then was like, just kidding, I don't actually work here, which is pretty obviously not a good idea. This isn't legal advice, but like, don't do that. You know what I mean? And the fact that she had no idea where her child was and seemed like generally indifferent as to her whereabouts definitely seems like enough to at least charge someone with child neglect, right?
So when they're looking through the computer, that's when they find or discovered that someone had been using the computer to Google search, quote, how to make chloroform, end quote. All right, baby, case closed, right?
Okay, so fun fact, it came out like right after the trial that this computer forensic expert that they had testify as a witness as to the search results or like the searches that were performed on the Anthony computer. Turns out something about the algorithm with how they like looked at all of the data was messed up, because his report said that they had gone to this website about chloroform 84 times, all right, which is pretty damning. However, turns out he double-checked the results. It was actually just once. Just once. And it wasn't even like a website about how to make and use chloroform. It was a website that had like historical information about how chloroform was used in the 18th century, which like frankly is a website I would personally visit just out of curiosity's sake if it popped up. Would I Google it? Probably not. But like, I don't know, old-timey medicine is interesting. You know, like there are aspects of this that aren't quite as damning as it was painted at trial. And this is a great example of how difficult it is to use computer evidence, not only because you have to call through tons and tons of data like this forensic expert had to do, but also you have to prove that the searches or whatever other activity is being alleged was done on a computer. You have to prove that it was done by the person you say it was done by. And just because they own the computer or exists inside their home doesn't definitively prove that they're the ones who did it. Who's to say someone didn't like break in the night and do a chloroform search, you know? Like obviously that doesn't sound super plausible, but like it doesn't definitively prove much. So then you have to rely on circumstantial evidence to tie the perpetrator or the defendant to the activity on the computer. For example, this was a desktop computer, so it wasn't like a laptop being transported places. It was inside the home. These 3 people lived in the home. 2 of these people have alibis, 1 doesn't. No one else that we know of was inside the home when these searches were done, so it must be this person. Or we can deduce that it was probably this person based on this evidence. But again, it's all circumstantial, which is just inherently slightly weaker evidence. And this is why computer crimes are often so hard to prosecute if you can even track down the computer from whence the crime was committed to begin with. Because usually someone who's sophisticated enough to commit a computer crime, maybe not via searching something, but by doing something nefarious online, is usually also able to then hide their identity and their other data on the internet. However, that being said, there are some very beneficial and non-nefarious reasons for why you would want to protect your identity and data online. That's where Surfshark comes in. Leeja, what's Surfshark? It's a VPN, my friends. What's a VPN, you ask? A VPN is a virtual private network. It encrypts all of the information sent between your device and the internet. And this keeps your data protected from large companies and cyber criminals. Also, using Surfshark, you're able to swap the location of your device or your IP address so you can surf the internet as though you are somewhere else in the world. You can virtually travel to anywhere on the planet. For example, if you're on vacation, you're somewhere else in the world and you have a show that just dropped their new season and it's on a version of Netflix that you can only get in the United States, you can use Surfshark and get to the US version of Netflix to watch your show. Okay, what's cool is that Surfshark has this clean web feature which blocks ads, trackers, malware, phishing attempts, all these things that keep you from being able to surf the web safely. All right, in today's day and age, you never know who's collecting your data or who's watching your data, and a lot of times it just feels really nice to be able to secure it all, lock it all down. Surfshark also offers additional products such as the alert feature, which allows you to monitor your personal data and check for potential breaches. And protecting your identity on the internet is really important. Take it from me, a person who has a personality on the internet. There's a lot of weirdos out there, you never know. Better safe than sorry, I always say. Click the link in the description down below to check out Surfshark and And for my very special viewers, if you use the code Leeja, you will get 83% off plus an extra 4 months for free. So thank you once again to Surfshark VPN for partnering with me on today's video.
May 24th, 2011, the trial begins. George and Cindy would not have normally been allowed in the courtroom because they were witnesses technically, but they were allowed to be present because they were the grandparents. They were allowed to be there if they promised to show no emotion. Now, they were heavily scrutinized because they showed no emotion in court, but many people forgot that they had been asked not to show emotion, and if they did show emotion, they would be asked to leave.
Okay, so I would hope that at the very least the jurors were reminded that they weren't supposed to take the reactions of her parents into account, that they were told not to react. I would assume the jurors were reminded of that, so hopefully it didn't bias the actual outcome of anything. But it's true that witnesses are typically ordered to be secluded from trial, but that has to be at the behest of the parties, meaning the parties have to move the court, ask the judge to order that the witnesses be sequestered or excluded from sitting in the gallery during the rest of the trial when they're not up there testifying. And this is standard practice, but the other party can object to that exclusion, which is, I imagine, what happened here. But it makes sense why we wouldn't want witnesses to be allowed to sit in the courtroom, because they could be influenced by what other witnesses say while on the stand, either on purpose or subconsciously. This way, jurors are able to more easily notice inconsistencies in stories because there isn't a witness who is like, oh wait, I remember that differently, maybe I'm wrong, maybe my story's wrong, and then overthinking and then getting on the stand and saying something different than what they would have actually testified had they been excluded from the court. It is not always the case that witnesses are excluded. Like, this isn't unprecedented that they were allowed to remain in the courtroom. It's really up to the discretion of the judge.
Casey said that when she was 8 years old, her dad began to molest her, and she learned to lie at a young age because of it. Now, George took the stand, and he said that he did not molest his daughter. Their proof? Casey didn't go to the gynecologist until she was 7 months pregnant, and that was the first time she had ever been to one.
I'm gonna be honest, I watched all of George's testimony on the stand, Casey Anthony's dad, and I didn't hear him mention anything about a gynecologist visit or any sort of theory there. And I did some other digging and couldn't find anything to support that. I'm sure it's out there. Like, she didn't make that up, I just couldn't find it. In closing statements, however, the prosecution did say that there was absolutely no evidence actually presented to confirm that George Anthony abused Casey Anthony as a child, other than the he said, she said nature of the witness testimony. And once the defense makes an accusation like that, they do have to back it up with something. Usually the burden of proof lies entirely with the prosecution. Like, the defense doesn't have to prove that they're innocent, they just have to poke holes in the prosecution's case. However, when the defense comes with an alternative theory, which they did in this case, their alternative theory was that Kaylee drowned in the pool and then George assisted with getting rid of the remains, and they're saying that Casey Anthony's father abused her. In that case, then the defense does have a burden to prove these new accusations. I will say though, the questioning of her father by the defense was like really contentious. Like, they clearly had it out for him. But as far as I could see, there was only a brief back and forth between George and the defense attorney where he basically just said like, did you do it? And even if you did do it, like, you wouldn't admit to it, right? Which the prosecution was really quick to object to pretty much all the questions. So none of them were actually really on the record for the most part.
You know, of course, that sex with a child under the age of 12 years old is life in prison, don't you, sir?
Relevance.
Sustained.
You're aware of the possible penalties of child molesting, don't you, sir?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
You, of course, would never admit to molesting your child, would you, sir?
Objection. Argumentative.
And George obviously flat out denied the allegations.
Have you ever sexually molested your daughter, Casey Anthony?
No, sir.
But the defense did have to be reprimanded regularly as to the form of the questions and argumentative nature, and the judge was not pleased.
He does not remember. He can't recall. Move to another area.
In fact, you asked your lawyer to...
Do not go there. Next question.
You were specifically excluded from the rule of sequestration?
I has approached the sidebar. Did y'all hear anything that I said at sidebar? Your Honor. Do not interrupt me, sir. State's Exhibit AJ is not in evidence. As I said at the sidebar, confidence. You can't question somebody about a photograph that is not in evidence.
Okay, but like, listen, clearly it was an effective story because again, all they really had to do was poke holes in the prosecution's story to get an inkling of doubt in the minds of jurors as to whether or not Casey Anthony killed her daughter. And frankly, they did it. At the end of questioning every single witness, the defense lawyer asked the witness a final question, and that was, were you there the day that Kaylee drowned?
Were you in Casey's home on June 16, 2008 when Kaylee drowned?
No.
Obviously, everyone said no because it's, you know, there's no proof of it actually having happened, but having that before the jurors over and over and over again, Kaylee drowned, Kaylee drowned, Kaylee drowned, was enough to perhaps give them some sort of pause as to whether or not the story that the prosecution was putting forth was actually true. And frankly, the fact that the jury let her off was not as outrageous as the world found it to be. And I know people are gonna be pissed for me saying that, but listen, hear me out. The body was so decomposed that there was no way to determine the cause of death. One article referred to the remains as skeletonized, which I hated that. They weren't able to get any DNA from things. The duct tape that they claimed was used on Kaylee, couldn't get DNA off of that. There was no murder weapon. So the state was basically presenting a series of motives and circumstantial evidence to try to tie Casey Anthony to the crime. And this leaves a lot of room for reasonable doubt. And even if it is true that she was clearly a pathological liar, that does not prove that she was a murderer.
If you remember watching this on TV, like I was, we were livid. Unbelievable. It still is. The jurors in that case, they were scared because they were receiving death threats of their own. They kept the jurors' names quiet for X amount of time, but after that, it was just like, here are their names, everyone. Ooh, it wasn't good.
So the jurors in this trial were completely sequestered, and the state went to great lengths to try to ensure that they were not tainted by outside media influence, which is like really hard to do when you have 17 jurors, because remember there were 12, but then there were 5 alternates. So like they couldn't go shopping on their own because every single magazine on the cover there was Casey Anthony's face. They couldn't watch TV because every single channel, including like Cartoon Network, had cross promotion about the Casey Anthony trial. They had like 3 channels they could watch, 2 of which were from like shopping networks. They had a stack of approved DVDs. They couldn't surf the web freely. Their calls were monitored. And once their identities were revealed, because like there's only so many resources you can expound upon a group of jurors, and then once the trial's done, it's like, you know, but also a lot of them came forward and spoke to the media on their own behalf of their own free will. I imagine there might have been like a Freedom of Information Act request done by the press to try to get their information. Like the cat was out of the bag pretty quickly. The jurors were actually scheduled to give a joint press release right after the verdict was read, but they decided to cancel it and instead were escorted out by the police, which is probably for the best because people were fucking pissed. But I read a bunch of these articles and the overwhelming thing that the jurors said was that they fucking hated Casey Anthony. Like they didn't like her, but the prosecution just didn't give them enough to find her guilty of murdering Kaylee beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think that's right. It's a really high standard, and just because she was a liar with a punchable face does not make her a murderer. See, as a general rule, our judicial system has this belief that we would rather have 100 guilty people walk free than 1 innocent person put behind bars, which is why we have such a high standard of proof. I will point out though, would this have been the same had Casey Anthony been black? Probably not. You can't know that for certain, but my guess is that 1, there would not have been as much national media attention if she was black, because like as a society, we generally care less about missing and murdered black and brown girls. And 2, she probably would have been found guilty because our judicial system has a proven track record of bias against people of color. And yes, I brought race into this. I'm sure some asshole's gonna comment like, you had me until you had to go and bring race into this. Yeah, I went there, and I'm not sorry, and I'm not wrong.
So after the trial, it came out that Casey had filed for bankruptcy twice and was unable to pay her lawyer, 𝗬𝗓𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍. So what happens when you don't have money to pay your lawyer? Well, she paid him in sexual favors.
So probably not surprisingly, the ethics of lawyer-client sexual relationships are a deep ethical issue faced by the legal profession because lawyers are skeezy. Many people argue that allowing lawyers to have sex with their clients should be outright banned, like it is in fields like psychiatry, for example. Some states like Minnesota, where I practice, it is outright banned, but in many others it is not. And there are a lot of people who are like, no, but my First Amendment rights, my right to association, my right to fuck people to whom I owe a fiduciary duty who are in vulnerable situations. Because usually you're not seeking the help of a lawyer if you're not in a vulnerable position. What about those rights? Anyway, like, if this is true, it may be ethically dubious, like she said, but something tells me the state of Florida has not outright banned lawyers from having sex with their clients. Something tells me. Also, this would likely only become an issue if, for example, Casey Anthony had been found guilty and on appeal she brought up the issue like he took advantage of me and he wasn't able to actually be a representative for me because we were having sex. Then it maybe would have become an issue, but in situations like this, if no one's objecting to it, it's probably fine.
What happened with the 𝗦𝗨𝗣𝗏𝗧𝗏 defamation case, you ask? Well, the judge tossed that one right out. I don't know, you guys.
So interestingly, 𝗦𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 is not the only person to file a defamation lawsuit against Casey Anthony. 𝗦𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, the meter reader who found the remains of Kaylee, also filed a defamation claim against Casey Anthony because he alleged that her lawyer's statements to the media made it seem like he was the one who did the murder. Now, they didn't outright sue Casey Anthony in court because immediately after trial, like Bailey says, Casey Anthony filed for bankruptcy because, like, yeah, she had no money, obviously, and a 30-day trial is obscenely expensive, even if you are giving your attorney sexual favors, allegedly. So when someone files for bankruptcy, then people who claim that they are owed money by the person who is bankrupt can come forward and make a claim with the court. So that's what happened here. They both said, like, she owes me money because she defamed me and my reputation was harmed as a result. Both cases were thrown out. 𝗦𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 was thrown out because she wasn't able to show that it really harmed her, because Casey Anthony repeatedly said that 𝗦𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 is not the 𝗦𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 that she's referring to, probably because the real 𝗦𝗨𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 doesn't exist. And then Kronk, despite the iconic last name, his defamation lawsuit was also thrown out, and the judge said that there really wasn't any evidence that Casey Anthony told her lawyers to make statements about him or even knew the statements that they were making, so it wasn't a valid claim, according to this bankruptcy judge. And then Jose Baez. I just did some research. I did a little Google. He's been busy, old Jose. Turns out he was one of Harvey Weinstein's lawyers. Classic. You love to see it. And even more iconically, Harvey Weinstein is now suing him. He's seeking the return of $1 million in legal fees. I'll link this article down below. Baez was Weinstein's lawyer for 5 months in 2019. He charged a non-refundable retainer of $200,000 per month. And under their original agreement, Baez anticipated charging a total of $2 million over the course of 10 months. Looks like Weinstein was dissatisfied with Baez's representation, alleging that Baez was regularly preoccupied with other matters, unavailable to communicate with Weinstein, and not directly involved with the compilation, investigation, research, and drafting of various high-priority substantive legal work. Apparently, a lot of it was delegated to Baez's co-counsel Ronald Sullivan, who is a Harvard law professor, and he ended up withdrawing from the case under heavy public pressure. Because duh, why? I just don't think I could ever be a criminal defense attorney because, like, come on. At the same time though, everyone deserves competent legal representation, even the accused, even the gross, gruddy, nasty Weinsteins of the world. I believe in that, I just don't want to be the person doing it. You know what I mean? Yikes. Oh, Baez was on a short-lived Fox reality show called You the Jury. He appeared with another lawyer called Joe Tacopina, who is now representing Baez in this Weinstein lawsuit. Yikes. There's a bunch of whiny, gross men fighting each other. Fascinating. Well, that's the story of Casey Anthony, dissatisfying as it is. Don't hate me in the comments below for saying that I don't think that the jury got it wrong in this case. Maybe there was some missteps throughout the handling of the case that led to such faulty evidence, but like, I don't know, man. I even have an inkling of a doubt in my head after watching all that trial testimony. I'll link below the court TV link to all of the testimony and you can watch it all for yourself. He's sleazy, but he did a good job. It's probably why he can charge $200,000 a month. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this video. If there's other videos you'd like me to react to, comment them down below. Are there any other true crime YouTubers that I haven't heard of that you want me to react to? Fill in some holes, any stories you'd like to hear from me about? I'm only years. Thanks once again to Surfshark VPN for partnering with me on today's video. Reminder that you can click the link down in the description and use the code Leeja for 83% off plus 4 free months. What a deal. Reminder that I'm still offering consulting services. So if you are a content creator or interested in becoming a content creator, but you don't know where to start, go on over to my website. You can schedule a session with me today. I'll give you all my favorite gear, tips and tricks for how I make my videos, edit my videos, publish them, and get more views, and hopefully set you out on the right foot to start your own content creation path. I've loved talking to people so far, and I look forward to hearing from you too. Some fun new things in my world. I'm still streaming over on Twitch. I do Sims on Wednesday nights and Siberia Saturdays on Saturday. The new Siberia game comes out in a couple days, and I'm super freaking excited to dive into it because I'm a big nerd for that game specifically. If you haven't joined and you don't know what the game's about, you can still join in midway through. I always kind of explain where we are in the storyline, and it's just beautiful and chill and a lovely time for all. And in The Sims, we're playing through the storyline of Legally Blonde. I made all of the Legally Blonde characters on Sims, and we're just playing it out now to see what happens. Okay, but a new thing that I'm going to start trying, you maybe noticed I was gone for a couple weeks. Part of that was for the Thanksgiving holiday, but also part of that was just because like I needed a break and I had some time to reflect, and I realized that I think one of the things that I'm really missing in this job that I got from other jobs was accountability, camaraderie, coworkers, things that like you kind of take for granted in the moment, and sometimes it's like annoying because people are like breathing down your neck, or you've got annoying coworkers. I feel like a happy compromise. I'm going to start streaming more over on Twitch, and I'm going to be doing, in addition to the games that I do Wednesday nights and Saturday afternoons, I'm also going to be doing live work with me, study with me sessions. It's going to be just me quietly sitting right here doing work. You'll see me, I'll be here just typing, just doing work. I'll put on some like soothing beats in the background. We'll take a break in the middle of the morning. It'll just be like a few hours of quiet co-working space. So if you are in the need of coworkers, maybe come join me for one of these live stream sessions. It'll just be a really chill time. Reminder to hit that thumbs up because it helps the algorithm, and subscribe if you've been lurking, watching my videos and just haven't gotten around to hitting that subscribe button. No shade, no judgment. It's time though. It's time to commit. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Goodbye.